Miller's in charge of me, Jim, right? Although I think he called me old and said, talk quick. I think that's what I heard. Is that what I heard? It's the Board of Education and the staff of the board and the department that's a team effort. So, Scott's here. I think actually helped sponsor this. So thank you, Scott. Scott Roadtruck, Jim Wilson. Scott's a business person. Jim's a longtime, he's a dentist, but also a local board member. Miller Hall, who was in the system for many years. Raleigh County, 40 years. Raleigh, Marshall, Monongalia. Frank Vitale, I believe, in the back from Mon County. Business person as well. Young kids in the system. Dave Perry, who was in the back, vice president of the board, a longtime legislator. Fayette County teacher and principal. And Deborah Sullivan, I believe, was here last night. I could not be here. Kanawha County, longtime educator as well. We have other members that are this board. Well, a couple things about this board. They read. Don't submit, right? Scott does. Don't submit anything you don't want read completely. But they're very energetic, very involved. They're out in the community, in the schools, in their areas, and we certainly encourage that, and we want to get the feedback. So I want to recognize those. I believe we have a staff member, at least one, Jason Butcher, I believe, is here, right? Okay, one of our staff members from the board. Do we have anybody else from the board of the department? I'll leave somebody out. Okay, if I go around the room, I think, we have a lot of legislators here. We're glad you're here. But I think you don't want to be, you probably want me to get through with this and get on with the program. Where I wanted to start was, this is something that I saw on a church, not a billboard, but a sign outside of a church where they tell you what's going on during the week. And I'm a Presbyterian, so this is a Baptist, but I'll give the Baptist credit. I believe what it said, I looked this up on the internet, it said, talk about your blessings more than you talk about your burdens. Talk about your blessings more than you talk about your burdens. You don't not talk about your burdens, but talk about your blessings. So that's kind of where I'm going to go, and I think it'll lead into talking to Superintendent Duerring just a little bit before the meeting. He's helping us as we maybe change our burdens into blessings. Is that a good way to put it, Mr. Superintendent? Some of our burdens. And I think we just heard about that in the program about how to do that. But let me ask you a question. I asked this last board meeting. What state in the United States educated in their public school system, Miller remembers it, I'm sure, because which state educated their public school system 3 of the top 5 paid college football coaches? West Virginia. Nick Saban, who's, whoa. Yeah, mostly Marion, I think. Nick was Marion. Nick and Rich Rodriguez were Marion, and I think Jimbo was Harrison. So 3 of the top 5. West Virginia public school system, and Rich even went to WVU. But we won't go any further. We'll leave that alone. Not here to talk about Rich or football. But anyway, we've been successful. So, I think we can continue that success. How many here in this room actually went to the West Virginia public school system? Can you raise your hand? That's a lot. Okay. I assume everybody in here is successful. You're not? Okay, great. So I'm just showing, the system is made a difference and continue to. I love the engagement we're seeing here today. I love the engagement we're seeing with the governor, with the legislature, with groups like this. Newt and I served on a commission a couple years ago, Mr. Thomas. We're really starting to see a lot of great discussion. I'm encouraged also that West Virginians just recently decided if they understand an investment, they'll invest in it with the road bond by huge numbers. If it's fairly done and they understand it, they'll support it. And that's really critical when we get in our school system. One thing I want to leave you with is that a big part of our money comes from local levies, right? Statewide, Kanawha might be the biggest, I'm not sure, but statewide it's $500 million. And one reason that's important is that's voted on every 5 years, I believe, 3 to 5, every 5 years by the local citizens. So it kind of leads me into where we're trying to really focus on, and I'm thrilled the folks are here from Kanawha. We're trying to pivot quickly to recognize the blessings of the teachers, the service personnel, the principals, local supers, and then the unique needs of our students today. As superintendent, from what I'm hearing is our needs, even within a classroom, change dramatically, even during the year. There's more dynamic change in the classroom probably there's ever been, and it's probably not going to slow down, I'm guessing. So we have some unique challenges. It's very dynamic. Someone said, Jim said, don't be static. If there's an opening on the board, do you want it? Because this board's not static. This board's not static. Well, it's not up to me. It's up to the governor. But anyway. But I okay. But I think our board, the board agreed that this is an active board who really wants to lead us in progress. We feel a great deal of responsibility. We feel responsibility. And it's a real pleasure to serve with this board and with the staff. Couldn't do it without staff. Dr. Payne is not here today. I know he was here yesterday. We're a pretty good team at trying to get to different events. He's busy, believe it or not. President, Gail would know, President of the State Board of Education is a busy job. So we try to, and I still have a full-time job. So 2 of them, I guess. I'm used to that. But we're a good team. We're pleased to have Steve back. Just real quickly, some things we've done, and I'll turn it over to the superintendent. In working with the governor and the legislature, majority and minority members, we've seen a reduced level of standardized testing, moving from the maximum allowed to hopefully the minimum required. We're trying to establish simplified standardized testing. I loved as an employer what I heard earlier today. I mean, as an employer, I don't care about test scores, I need values. And so I like what I heard. I like what the last panel, I like that discussion. So, I think we're all ears, working to see how we can change things. The Office of Performance Audits, which unfortunately was more of a gotcha type of thing, is now history. RESAs, which seemed to be an unneeded layer of bureaucracy, are being greatly restructured and simplified. Again, it's a team effort. Legislature had to take the ball on both of those. They're the ones that had to carry the heavy water, and they did. As far as our agenda goes, some changes we've made to try to be more transparent. One is streaming, so you can listen to us now. We're streaming, not practical yet to go video, but we are doing audio. Chair Espinosa had been hoping for that, and I'm glad we're doing that. We also have on our agenda now, we have places for the chair of the House and Senate Ed. I know Dave Moore's here, and Hank Hager. Sometimes they might have do they have other councils here? Melissa is here. So we, encourage if the chairs can't make it for them to come to our meetings. We've also added just recently thoughts from the field, which has been very constructive. We actually got encouraged to do that in Morgantown when Superintendent DeNovo and Superintendent Brooke County, help me out. Who's Superintendent Brooke? Tony? Okay. Jim knows that area of the state well. That's what we depend on. Okay, that's okay. They came to the meeting in Morgantown and had great thoughts for us, and we quizzed them to learn from them, and that was very receptive, so we're continuing that. We'll hear from the Kanawha Superintendent here shortly. We have been to Morgantown. We're headed to Huntington. We're headed to some other places to try to get out and about. So we're doing that, and the members I don't have to encourage them to, they're active. So I'm glad the members are active. So thank you for having me. With that, I'm going to pledge to you that I think we're going to continue in this direction with high energy and to count our blessings. And I think we're going to hear about some blessings from the superintendent of Kanawha. He's actually working on policy 6200, which is now several hundred pages, and I think we're going to get that down to a lot less than that. And if you'll notice, what we're trying to do now is we're trying to work with the field as we structure policies that they need to follow, so that hopefully they're common sense and we don't spend a lot of time reading too much. Unlike Scott, I don't read quite as much as Scott does anyway. So you have one job, okay. But anyway, so with that, Superintendent Duerring, it's all yours. Thank you for all the work you do.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to be here today, and hearing Mr. Campbell talk about all the changes that are coming in education. We look forward to it every day. But they said I had about 10 to 15 minutes to talk to you, and so I thought, well, there's a couple things I like to do. I like to tell you about some of the things in Kanawha, which I was asked to do, and I also like to do a visual. So if you don't mind, I'm just going to kind of get comfortable. I just really feel the need to do that. I don't want you to be shocked. This is not a striptease. Halloween's over. I'm not going to scare everybody in this room to death. Because it would be. I mean, look. Okay? So, part of the visual I want you to see is this. So, as we talk about what's happening, I want you to understand that in our public schools, great things are happening. I mean, kids are learning every day. They're the technology they're using, they're coding. They're going to Ivy League schools, and I'm really fortunate today. I have a group of really outstanding educators here today for you to talk to. All outstanding in what they do in their classrooms and in their buildings as administrators. And so it's just amazing to see every day that our teachers and administrators show up and they're clothing children. They're getting them outside agency help. I'm almost embarrassed anymore to ask teachers how much they spend in their classrooms because they spend so much money supplementing taking care of kids. I can assure you in West Virginia schools, there's not going to be one child that's not going to have a Christmas due to those schools and teachers this coming season, because that's exactly what they'll do. They'll take care of our kids in West Virginia. So as I begin to talk a little bit about Kanawha County schools, I want you to understand that everybody has this perception of Kanawha that we're kind of like one of the richest districts in the whole state. But I want to tell you that we have 26,700 kids, and I want you to know that 82.5% of them are on free lunch. They qualify for free lunch. So you need to know that we're not absolutely the richest county in the state. To that end, we got really worried about making sure that our kids are able to eat and be taken care of. So we bought into the national program, the community education program, and now all students in Kanawha County eat for free. They eat breakfast and they eat lunch. And so we make sure we feed them, and we have a snack program so that we can take care of them. It took us a while to get there. It took us almost 3 years to get there in order to get all our schools on. And so we've done that in order to take care of our kids. So some things I would like to talk to you a little bit about. One is the Hoover area. Everybody's always asking about what's going on in the Hoover area since we had the floods. Yes, we still have people living in tents up there. We have people that haven't been back into their homes, but our school system stepped up to the plate. And we took them to a split schedule. We now have property that we're looking at. We're doing environmental studies. We kind of have a layout, the way we want the schools to look. It's just getting through the voluminous paperwork that FEMA wants you to do. For every dollar, there's about 15 or 20 pages. But you know, a nice thing happened about that. We went to a split schedule, and you might not have known that. But we had no choice. We didn't want the kids to leave the area. We didn't want them to be sent anywhere else. So we did half day in the morning. The students came at 7:30. The middle school students left at 11:30. They had lunch. Then the high school kids came in the afternoon. You know what was really funny about that in the end? Achievement went up in those schools. It went up. And so now we're having major discussions in our school system about seat time versus minutes. And the other thing that we're looking at too is we are not. The other thing we're looking at now, we're working in our Department of Transportation, we're flipping the bus schedule. And we're going to have our high school students, research says between 8:30 and 9:30 is a good time for them to start. We're going to start them at 8:30, hopefully. We'll get that all settled and ready in November to bring to our schools. And so it's going to be elementary first, middle school, and then high school starting at 8:30. We found out our kids were more rested. We found out, the teacher said to me, it's the least amount of missed assignments I've ever had since I've been teaching. And parents said our kids look forward to going to school. So we're really having talks not only with our principals and our management team about what does school look like now for those kids. How can we rearrange that to make it more conducive for their learning? And so we're pretty proud of what's happened in the Hoover and Elkview given the circumstances they were confronted with, and that our teachers stood up to the plate, our principals stood up to the plate, most of all the kids did. And that was the most amazing part about all of it, was what they did in their school, getting there on time. So we're pretty excited about that. And again, we did everything. We had let them use our property. We had CVS Pharmacy on there getting them medicines. Our school system wanted to show the people in that community that we're there for them and we're not going to abandon them and walk away. The other thing I'd like to talk about, and I want to thank everybody in this room, because everybody in this room is a part of believing in public education. I can't praise you enough for Senate Bill 630 that was passed. I think it's going to revolutionize the way we do things in our state, and we're very pleased about that. Because I truly believe in public education, but what I felt was that public education isn't servicing everybody. And so that when we take a look at public education under Senate Bill 630, why shouldn't people that want to homeschool participate in some of the stuff we do in public education? There shouldn't be a reason why they do that. And so we've been talking with our principals, and they've been the most amazing people. We're now going to have three types of students. We're going to have those students that are full-time virtual online, and we're going to have those students who be blended students. They may want to come during the day and take a couple classes at school, and maybe take some and stay at home and take some. And then students that are full-time in the building. What that allows to happen is this, that by enrolling in your local public education, you become a student in that school. But you can have access to counseling services, and we met with our homeschool parents and said, what would you like to get from us as a school system? What is it that you would like to get? And they said, we don't always know about scholarships and things like that, so we'd like to have access to them. Okay? Some had special needs children. They would like to have some guidance from the special education teacher in the building and the caseworker. So now that's going to take place. We're looking forward to it. We developed West Virginia Virtual Online. Dr. Payne was amazing. On his second day of being in office, he came to me and said, we're for this. We want to move this forward with you. And we're going to house the program in Kanawha County, but it really is West Virginia. It's not Kanawha County's programs. It'll be the state of West Virginia. What happens in local school districts when kids enroll in their local school, that county will get that funding. Then when that student enrolls online, whether they're taking 6 courses, 4 courses, or 3 courses, the per pupil funding they get for that student, that's what they'll pay for the courses on West Virginia Virtual Online. So then they have access to all the services. They can participate in band, they can participate in sports. So we're actually opening the doors of public education. That needed to happen. We were still working on an old model of everybody in their seat, and that's the way it should be. And day school is not for everybody. It is not. We've had 2 high school campuses on 2 college campuses. We have 1 now on a college campus. We're trying every which way to educate these kids in a way that they can get their diploma. And there is nothing wrong, please understand, there's nothing wrong with a student finishing high school in 3 years and getting out. So if they can do that, and they can take online courses, and they can come to class and sit with their teachers, and also through online get tutoring, they can do that as well. The parents can call and say, my kid needs help in math, go to your local school because you're enrolled in your local school. I had some people tell me it's the greatest thing ever. I pay my taxes, now I'll be able to benefit from it, rather than our kids being totally homeschooled and getting nothing. And so I think this is the way we move education in West Virginia forward. And I'm so proud of our legislators and everything you did to make that happen. I mean, you did that. You could have said no and not passed that bill through, but you did it. And so we're very pleased about that. As we take a look at that, we also want to thank the Benetton Foundation because they gave us a $100,000 grant. We now have hired a director to run it in our school system. Also to develop coursework and the kinds of things that we're going to do as we continue to take this whole state program over when we take a look at homeschooling. The other thing that's a big issue for us is we have Learning 2020. It's a technology program. We tell our students it's about the device. It's about learning. It's not about the device. But what we want you to do is be able to utilize that device to the best of your ability so that you can learn and achieve. We have a lot of things there. One of the things we got another grant, we've put Wi-Fi on all our buses because now when our kids are traveling 35, 40, 50 minutes, because you have to go around the mountain, our bus drivers are telling us that they're getting their homework done before and after while they're riding the bus. And guess what? Discipline's decreased tremendously on the bus. They're like, this is really great. So to that end, we got another grant. When we talk, and it was with, we did it with the Higher Policy Education Commission. We were one of 12 cities selected to get the grant. And what we did is we actually took our buses to football games. And we put a counselor on each of the buses. And they helped those parents fill out their FAFSA forms so that we could move forward. We did so well with that, and what our counselors did in the building, that we actually got second place nationally in an award for how we moved it forward in our school district. So that was through another grant. I hope you're seeing the pattern here as I speak with you that we're having to go to a lot of other resources in order to make this happen in our district. So we're pretty excited about that as well. The technology, if you could see what our kids are doing in our classrooms, they're coding. We were fortunate to get another grant with NASA, and over the next 3 years, we just finished phase 1. All of our elementary, middle, and high schools will have a full robotics program. We phased in the first year this past year, we're doing the second year, and then we'll do the third year. Again, another grant in order to try to improve technology and to bring our children where they need to be globally. I'm really concerned about that, and it really bothers me. I run a national organization called the National Federation of Urban and Suburban School Districts, and so I have the opportunity to visit school districts all over the United States, and sometimes people have such a dim view of us. And so I just tell them, oh, our kids are coding, they're doing robotics, we have one-to-one technology in middle and high schools, we're 4 and 3 to 1 in Ireland. What are you talking about? We're fine. You know? And the other thing when we talk about that, you know, when you take a look, we always talk about the good old years. Well, if you go back to the 50s and 60s, guess what the graduation rate was in the 50s and the 60s? It was in the 50s and the 60s. There's where it stood. In 2014 and 2015, the national graduation rate was at 83%. Guess what West Virginia's was? For a year, 89.8%. Above the national, look at that. And our 5-year, 87.4%. So we're doing all right in West Virginia. When you take a look at the achievement gap, we're narrowing the achievement gap. In an October 17, 2016 article, they said achievement gap is narrowing because all the boats have risen. All the boats have risen. So there was this statistics listing the states. There were 23 states who were moving forward and narrowing the achievement gap. Guess who one of those were? West Virginia. There was only one state above that, and guess what? There were 23 states in that category. There are 26 below us that weren't doing, or that were not narrowing their achievement gap. So what we do in West Virginia, we should be proud of, and we should be proud of our public schools. A couple more things. The whole idea of mental health services is very important to us. On the eastern end of our county, the coal mines have shut down. There's not a lot of places for them to work. And what we're seeing is a real growth in aggressiveness by our students because their parents aren't working. We don't know if they're home doing drugs, doing alcohol, or what's going on. They're frustrated. They don't have the money. And so now we're trying to take care of that because we should be taking care of all of our children. When we take a look at our west side, our highest crime area, highest poverty area, we have to take care of our children. So what we did, we kind of restructured our Title I funds, and we put family liaisons over in the west side where they're connectors with the community into the school so that they become familiar with the parents in the community so that they don't see them, because you know how it is. You go into an area like that and they shut their door, you can't come in, and the thing you're here to take my babies away. No, we're not. We're here to help you and get ahead with your children. So we're doing the same thing up at East Bank now in that area. Step 4 monies, we're taking a look at rearranging that money in order to get family liaisons and get clinical psychologists into the building in order to help these kids with their problems so that they can learn. So now, when you take a look at what's happening with schooling, we're not only responsible for teaching the kids academically, but now we're looking at their mental health, we're taking a lead, and sadly enough, their physical needs. And not only are we doing that, but we're counseling their kids because guess what? Most of them are being raised by their grandparents, and they don't know what to do with them. And so now we've become this multi-service agency. We're just not a school where everybody shows up and sits in a seat and learns, but we've got to help you get services. We've got to get your lights turned on. We've got to get you food. You're being kicked out of your apartment. How do we get you rent and get you back into your apartments? So it's very important to us to have mental health services and nursing services as well so that we can give these kids medical care. So when you go out and you start thinking some legislation you might be interested in, that's something that you might want to tap into as we start taking a look at how can we improve for the children of West Virginia the services we give them. Again, how do we do that? We can't expect them to do that as children, so we have to do it for them. Also, when we talk about career and technical and adult, it's growing, it's amazing what's happening. We have a technical and adult teacher here, and one of the things that our students are leaving technical and adult education making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, and $80,000 a year. There is nothing wrong with that kind of income. And so this idea or this myth that everybody has to go to college is just that. It's got to stop. There are other ways. Certainly a 4-year degree is important for a lot of things that you want to do, but that doesn't necessarily have to be that way. And we have to kind of remove that stigma, and we have to work with all the kids in our school system to kind of expose them to that. So it's very hard to do because we started a program at Stonewall Jackson Middle School, and in the middle school, but what we had to do is we had to take funds from the high school, and we had to take funds from technical and adult to try to create this program at the middle school so that we can start exposing kids early on to what it's like about technical and adult education and how you can walk out making good money. I can't tell you the number of college graduates that are standing in line waiting to get that dream job that's never going to come. And so what we essentially do when we force every child into that mode is they become dysfunctional. They graduate and they become dysfunctional. And so there are other avenues, and that's what we're trying to do with our children, expose them to all avenues. So, you know, that's another area you want to think. How can we get technical and adult down into the middle schools and just not say put it there? Because that's, you know, we need something to help us, a vehicle to get there, whether it's funding. And so, lastly, I'd like to say a few more things. I know money's always tight, and we talk about that when it comes to legislation, so I encourage you to be flexible and look at what we already have to make it better. For instance, Senate Bill 359. It's now law, 18A4-7A, the most qualified teacher. Thank you, one and all, for doing that one. That was really a great law to pass, and it's worked well in our districts. I would encourage you, please, to look at the service personnel position on that. Because not every time the service nurse, while being the most senior, and you can see our administrators shaking their head, that they're right for this child that they're going to be one-on-one with. Or they're going to be right for that kindergarten room. So take a look at that as you did with this one and put more flexibility into how we operate in our school systems. The other bill, 2711, flexible planning periods in the calendar. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's amazing. And when we get back, that's where we want to take a look at seat time and minutes. The last one is House Bill 2561, where they put in there that we could take $200,000 of our bus money, and if we didn't need to buy buses right away, or we didn't need them that year, we could opt out and send something to the WBDE, and we could use that money for other things. And that's what I talk about when I say to you flexibility in what we already have. Because you just can't say keep adding more and more and more when the money's not there to add. So let's take a look at what we have and how we can become more flexible with it. Look at how we can free up some of those policies and restrictions that don't allow us to move forward in the school system and work with students and educate them the way we want to. So, taking a look at all of that, the key words are flexibility with funding, mental health services, nursing services, and lastly, the safety of our kids in our schools. That's always important to all of us in this day and age. We're having to build man traps, and we're having to do everything we can to keep kids safe. We just had last week we had a parent fight out in the parking lot. They were just beating the daylights out of each other. And our kids got scared to death. And those kinds of things are going on, and we have to protect them and keep them safe. So I really appreciate it because I do love public schools. I do love West Virginia public schools. And as corny as it may sound, they are almost Hedman public schools. So I'd like you to do me a favor. I'd like you all to stand up for a minute. Could you just stand up for a minute? I want you to stand up. No, oh no. Here he sits straight down with you? No. I want you to stand up because I want you standing up for the children of West Virginia and West Virginia public schools. And when I count down to 3, 2, 1, I want everybody to say, I love West Virginia public schools. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Let's hear it.
I love West Virginia public schools.
Thank you.